The first day of a new year typically represents hope, fresh beginnings, and renewed promises. But on January 1st, 2014, in Columbus, Georgia, the dawn brought something entirely different, a crime so brutal, so incomprehensible, that it would forever change the lives of everyone involved. In the quiet early hours of that New Year's morning, while most celebrations had wound down and citizens slept off their festivities, a 36-year-old woman fought for her very survival on a desolate vacant lot in one of the city's most troubled areas. Kidnapped, sexually assaulted, doused with gasoline, set ablaze, shot multiple times. Yet somehow, against all odds, she survived to tell her story. Welcome to one of the most disturbing cases in recent Columbus history, a New Year's celebration that spiraled into unspeakable violence on Far Road, leaving an indelible mark on a community already too familiar with crime. Our story takes place in Columbus, Georgia, the state's third-largest city, sitting along the Chattahoochee River. While parts of Columbus thrive with culture and commerce, other areas struggle with persistent violence and poverty. Among these troubled areas is Far Road, a location with a well-documented history of criminal activity that has earned it the grim distinction of being considered one of the city's notoriously dangerous neighborhoods. By 2014, Far Road had already developed a reputation for violence that would only intensify in the coming years. The specific location where our story unfolds, 988 Far Road, was at that time a vacant lot, a desolate patch of land that would become the setting for an act of brutality that shocked even hardened law enforcement officers. But to understand what happened there, we need to go back to the beginning, to what seemed like just another New Year's gathering among friends. The evening of December 31st, 2013, bled into the early morning hours of January 1st, 2014. Across Columbus, people were celebrating the arrival of a new year, full of hope and possibility. Among them was a 36-year-old woman attending a gathering at a residence on Garden Drive. The mood was festive. The alcohol flowed freely. And at some point during the celebration, something that began as simple entertainment, a spirited rap battle, would set in motion a chain of events that would lead to horror. Present at this gathering were three men: 23-year-old Katori Glover, 28-year-old Joey Betrayal Garin, and 23-year-old Robert Carl Johnson. What began as friendly competition would soon spiral out of control, though the exact trigger remains unclear. Was it a perceived insult during the rap battle, an argument that escalated, a pre-existing tension? Whatever the catalyst, the festive atmosphere of the New Year's celebration would soon give way to something dark and sinister. As the night wore on, what had begun as a social gathering took a sudden, violent turn. Three men, Glover, Garin, and Johnson, forcibly took the 36-year-old woman from the Garden Drive residence and forced her into a vehicle. The exact details of how they managed to abduct her from a home with other people present remain unclear. Was she lured outside? Did they physically overpower her? Did others at the party witness the abduction and fail to intervene? What we do know is that once they had her in the vehicle, they drove her to 988 Far Road, a vacant lot chosen for its isolation, a place where screams would go unheard and violence could unfold without interruption. The selection of this location was no accident. It speaks to premeditation, to a level of calculated malice that elevates this crime beyond a momentary lapse of judgment or an alcohol-fueled mistake. This was a deliberate choice to find a secluded area where they could commit atrocities without fear of discovery or intervention. As they drove through the dark streets of Columbus, the woman must have realized the danger she was in. Did she plead for her release? Did she try to escape? Or was she already subdued and unable to resist? These are questions that haunt this case, details that may only be known to the victim and her attackers. What happened next at that vacant lot on Far Road constitutes one of the most horrific attacks documented in Columbus's crime history. The brutality inflicted upon the 36-year-old woman defies comprehension and reveals a level of depravity that shocks the conscience. First, all three men, Glover, Garin, and Johnson, sexually assaulted her. But the violence didn't end there. In what can only be described as an attempt to eliminate both their victim and any evidence of their crimes, they poured gasoline over her body and set her on fire. As flames engulfed her, they then proceeded to shoot her at least 8 times before leaving her for dead at the vacant lot. The combination of these acts, sexual assault, burning, and multiple gunshot wounds, speaks to a level of cruelty that transcends explanation. It was a deliberate attempt to ensure she wouldn't survive to identify them or testify against them. They wanted to eliminate both their victim and any evidence of their crimes. But remarkably, against all odds, they failed. In what can only be described as a miracle of human resilience, the victim survived the attack. Despite being sexually assaulted, set on fire, and shot multiple times, she clung to life with remarkable determination. At approximately 7:40 a.m. on January 1st, 2014, she was discovered at the vacant lot, crying out for help. Her body was severely burned, riddled with bullet wounds, yet somehow she had survived the night of torture and remained conscious enough to call for assistance. First responders rushed her to Midtown Medical Center, where her condition was critical. The extent of her injuries was catastrophic. She had been burned over significant portions of her body, hit by multiple bullets, and suffered severe internal damage that required the removal of part of her lower intestines. For 3 weeks, she remained in a coma, her life hanging in the balance as doctors fought to save her. The medical team warned that even if she survived, she might never walk again and could lose the use of her left arm permanently. Judge Arthur Smith III would later remark during sentencing, "But for her enormous will to live, this might have been a murder case." This statement captures the extraordinary strength displayed by the victim, a woman who refused to die despite enduring what would have been fatal injuries for most people. Her survival not only gave her a chance at rebuilding her life, but also ensured that justice could be pursued against those who had committed these horrific acts. Law enforcement quickly launched an investigation into the brutal attack. Detectives worked to piece together the events of that New Year's night, gathering evidence from the Garden Drive residence where the evening began and the vacant lot on Far Road where the attack occurred. The investigation led police to identify 3 suspects: Kitori Glover, Joey B. Trail Garin, and Robert Carl Johnson. The evidence against them must have been substantial, as arrests were made within days of the crime. Garin and Johnson were taken into custody on Thursday, January 2nd, just 1 day after the attack. Glover was arrested 2 days later, on Saturday, January 4th. The swift action by law enforcement speaks to the severity of the crime and the priority placed on bringing the perpetrators to justice. As the investigation continued, detectives uncovered a disturbing pattern of behavior and prior brushes with the law among the suspects. Glover, it was revealed, had previous probation violations in Muscogee County State Court and Recorder's Court. Garin faced additional charges related to controlled substances and traffic violations, while Johnson had a pending charge of simple assault with intent to commit violent injury. These prior encounters with the legal system suggest a pattern of disregard for the law and a propensity for violence that may have culminated in the New Year's Day attack. On Monday, following the attack, Katori Glover appeared before Judge Michael Sielinski for a preliminary hearing. The charges against him were extensive and grave: kidnapping, hijacking a motor vehicle, rape, arson, aggravated sodomy, aggravated sexual battery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime. Glover entered a plea of not guilty to all charges and waived his preliminary hearing. His wife, Ashley Glover, from whom he was separated, attempted to provide an alibi, claiming he was with her and their children on New Year's Day. She described him as a cool person who enjoyed rapping and expressed her intention to hire a lawyer for his defense. Judge Sielinski, apparently unpersuaded by this alibi, set no bond for Glover on the most serious charges: sodomy, hijacking, rape, and aggravated sexual battery. For the remaining charges, the judge set bonds totaling $275,000. Similarly, Garin and Johnson faced a litany of charges, with bonds set at $500,000 for 5 of their 9 charges. Like Glover, they were held without bond for the charges of sodomy, hijacking, rape, and aggravated sexual battery. The cases of all 3 men were bound over to Superior Court, where they would face trial for their actions on that fateful New Year's Day. The legal process moved forward, culminating in a trial that would determine the fate of the 3 men accused of this brutal attack. In August 2018, after years of legal proceedings, Katori Glover, Joey Betrayal Garin, and Robert Carl Johnson were found guilty for their roles in the kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder of the woman on New Year's Day, 2014. The evidence presented at trial must have been overwhelming, as all 3 men were convicted on multiple charges. The severity of their crimes was reflected in the sentences handed down by Judge Arthur Smith. The third, each man received multiple life sentences for their actions. During the sentencing hearing, Judge Smith made a statement that underscored the extraordinary resilience of the victim. But for her enormous will to live, this might have been a murder case. This remark highlights how close the perpetrators came to adding murder to their list of crimes, saved only by the incredible strength and determination of the woman they had tried to kill. The multiple life sentences ensured that Glover, Garin, and Johnson would spend the remainder of their lives behind bars, never again free to prey upon innocent victims. While no punishment could ever truly compensate for the trauma inflicted on the victim, the sentences at least guaranteed that these 3 men would never again have the opportunity to commit such heinous acts. The brutal attack on Farr Road had a profound impact on the Columbus community, particularly those living in the vicinity of this crime-plagued area. The incident reinforced Farr Road's reputation as one of the city's most dangerous locations, a perception that would be further cemented by subsequent violent crimes in the years that followed. Indeed, Farr Road would continue to be a hotspot for violence in Columbus. On New Year's Day of 2019, exactly 5 years after the attack on the 36-year-old woman, the area recorded Columbus's first homicide of that year, described as the latest in an ongoing string of such events. The months preceding the 2019 homicide had seen a teenager shot and killed in his car on Farr Road in July 2018, a man fatally shot at the Hannah Heights Apartments on Farr Road in September 2018, and a shooting at a convenience store on the same road less than 2 months before the New Year's Day homicide. According to Reggie Lewis of Cure Violence, the Farr Road area is considered one of the 4 most dangerous zip codes within Columbus. This reputation for violence reflects the ongoing challenges faced by this community in addressing crime and ensuring the safety of its residents. Interestingly, the specific location of the 2014 crime 988 Far Road appears to have undergone changes in the years following the attack. What was described as a vacant lot in 2014 later became the site of a mobile home park offering rental and rent-to-own options, according to a Zillow listing. This transformation might represent an attempt to reclaim and repurpose a space marked by tragedy, though the broader issues of violence in the area persisted. The brutal attack on New Year's Day, 2014, left the victim with severe and potentially permanent physical disabilities. Doctors indicated that she might never walk again and could lose the use of her left arm. The removal of part of her lower intestines would have long-lasting implications for her health and quality of life. Beyond these physical injuries, the psychological trauma of such an attack is immeasurable. The terror of being abducted, the violation of sexual assault, the agony of being set on fire and shot multiple times, these experiences would leave emotional scars that may never fully heal. While the available information doesn't provide updates on the victim's long-term recovery, the initial prognosis paints a picture of a challenging road ahead. Her extraordinary will to live, highlighted by Judge Smith during sentencing, suggests a strength of character that would be crucial in facing the daunting process of physical and emotional recovery. The conviction and sentencing of her attackers may have provided some measure of closure, some sense that justice had been served. But no verdict or sentence could ever truly compensate for what was taken from her on that New Year's Day. The Far Road attack, horrific as it was, did not occur in isolation. It is part of a broader pattern of violence that has plagued certain areas of Columbus, Georgia, for years. The consistent reports of shootings, homicides, and other violent crimes in the Far Road area speak to systemic issues that extend beyond any single incident, no matter how brutal. While overall crime rates in Columbus reportedly decreased by 5% at some point, certain areas, including the Far Road vicinity, continued to experience significant violent crime. This disparity highlights the uneven distribution of safety and security within the city, with some neighborhoods bearing a disproportionate burden of criminal activity. Beyond the issue of crime, there are indications of other challenges facing the Far Road area. Records from September 2021 mention an update regarding the Exide Battery property on Far Road, indicating a history of potential contamination issues. This environmental concern adds another layer of complexity to the challenges faced by residents of this community. The persistent violence in this area raises questions about the effectiveness of law enforcement strategies, the availability of resources for community development, and the underlying social and economic factors that contribute to crime. The 2014 attack, while extreme in its brutality, is in some ways symptomatic of these broader issues that continue to affect the Far Road community. The New Year's Day attack on Far Road stands as one of the most horrific crimes in Columbus's recent history. What began as a social gathering with a spirited rap battle escalated into an act of brutality that defies comprehension: kidnapping, sexual assault, burning, and shooting that, by all odds, should have resulted in death. Yet the story isn't just one of brutality and depravity. It's also a testament to the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit, a 36-year-old woman who, despite unimaginable trauma, refused to die. Her survival ensured that her attackers would face justice, each receiving multiple life sentences for their crimes. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this case isn't the unusual nature of the violence, it's how it fits into a pattern. Far Road's reputation as one of Columbus's most dangerous areas wasn't created by this single incident, nor did it end with the conviction of these three men. The area continued to experience significant violent crime in the years that followed, including homicides, shootings, and assaults. This suggests that while individual cases may be resolved through the criminal justice system, the underlying issues that contribute to violence remain unaddressed. True justice requires not just punishing perpetrators, but also addressing the conditions that foster crime and creating communities where all residents can feel safe. As we reflect on this case, we're left to consider not just the individual tragedy of one woman's suffering, but the collective failure to create safe communities for all citizens. The story of the Far Road attack isn't just about one night of violence, it's about the ongoing struggle for safety, justice, and healing in communities plagued by persistent crime. The three men responsible, Katori Glover, Joey Betrayal Garin, and Robert Carl Johnson, will spend the rest of their lives behind bars. But the community's journey toward healing and safety continues, a reminder that justice is not a destination, but an ongoing process requiring vigilance, compassion, and commitment from all of us. For the victim, whose name remains protected, we can only hope that time has brought some measure of healing and peace. Her extraordinary will to live, the determination that Judge Smith highlighted during sentencing, stands as a powerful reminder of the human capacity for survival in the face of unimaginable horror. And perhaps therein lies the most important lesson of this case, that even in our darkest moments, the human spirit can prevail. Even when faced with the worst of humanity, we can still find the strength to survive, to seek justice, and to begin the long journey toward healing. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Diaries and click on the notification bell to stay updated on our real crime stories.